Hey guys, Drifter here. Today I wanted to talk about the loot box ban bill in the US again because it's progressing very quickly. Normally bills take months or maybe even years to become laws, but this one has bipartisan support already from 2 Democrats and the text is publicly available. One of these Democrats tried to pass an unconstitutional violent video game ban last year that got shot down, so that's a little bit weird. I think that these two just want to hurt games in some way. But the enemy of my enemy is my friend, perhaps, is the logic here. But anyway, it has bipartisan support, the text is up there, and it could be put to a vote in the Senate very, very soon. The senator that proposed the bill has the text publicly available to read online. As you can see, I've downloaded it and I linked it below in the description if you want to read it, but it's really long and filled with lawyer speak. So we're not going to go over every page today. Instead, we're going to summarize and talk about the important parts. And by the way, if you were distracted by the anime girl that's above me, then you need to get your head in the right place and focus up because it's a serious subject matter today. Basically, the bill has 4 parts. Number 1 defines what a game played by minors is, and it's really important to note here that this is not based on ESRB rating or rating from any sort of board that you've ever heard of, because ESRB and most of these other rating companies are private organizations. You can't write laws giving private organizations power. So it's up to the state attorney generals to decide whether the game is intended to be played by minors based on a wide variety of things such as subject matter, visual content, music and audio content, age of characters, celebrity presence in the game, child celebrities and things like that, and a whole variety of other factors. It is definitely designed to make it subjective so that it's much more difficult to skirt the law and just kind of tick boxes very technically and still have a mature game that's aimed at kids. It's up to individual discretion whether or not the game is designed for minors. The second part of the bill defines and bans pay-to-win systems. It goes into a fair bit of detail about what constitutes pay-to-win, including pay for advantage and generally paying for faster progression as well, or restricted areas of the game that are kind of hidden behind a paywall. This section is the most strict of any of them, and if this bill were to pass, almost any kind of pay-to-win game, even the ones that aren't so bad that we're kind of okay with, like maybe Candy Crush, would be illegal under the game. If a game company were to violate this part of the bill, the FTC could restrict licenses, or it could be referred to the state attorney generals to levy fines or other legal fees. The state attorney generals are given a lot of power in this particular bill. Number 3, the bill then defines and bans a wide variety of loot boxes. Even cosmetic-only loot boxes that don't change the game whatsoever, and chain bonus add-ons like the Black Ops Pass, like selling one piece of content that you can only access after you've bought the other piece of content. So a lot of things have been banned. Now, to be clear, it does not ban cosmetic items. You can still direct purchase skins and things like that, but skins and loot boxes are going to be going the way of the dinosaur. It has the same enforcement mechanisms of the FTC oversight, ability to restrict, and state attorney general's abilities to levy civil penalties against companies. And finally, there's a mandate at the end of the bill that requires a full congressional report on microtransactions and pay-to-win systems so that Congress can better understand how these systems work, who they target, how they generate money, and then reevaluate the law in 2 years. If passed, this would have an absolutely massive impact on the video game industry. It would blow up the biggest source of revenue for almost every game on the market, especially mobile games. That whole market would just get flipped upside down because it effectively allows the government to fine or restrict games that kids play. And to be clear, this is games that kids play, not necessarily games that are intentionally marketed at kids, but just games that kids play frequently that developers don't accommodate for, like Call of Duty or Apex, would also be fined, just so long as you can prove that lots of children are playing it, or that it's maybe kind of sort of designed for children. There's a lot of gray area and a lot of subjectivity there. It puts a lot of burden of regulations on gaming companies and subjects them to a lot of fines if they don't comply with these regulations. Economically speaking, there are 2 likely outcomes of this bill becoming law, the first of which is a bust in the video games industry that results in lower quality, probably lower prices and overall lower trading volume of stocks of these kind of companies. Given the growth of gaming and the popularity of gaming and the future of this sector as a whole, I would see this level of stagnation as being very unlikely, but it is possible. Sometimes things like that happen. More realistically, which is our number 2 today, this bill being passed would increase the cost to consumers in some way. It would basically just pass on that increased cost to people. And that's what happens most of the time. You guys know me, you know I'm a left-leaning, pro-regulation, cuckolding enthusiast myself, but I can read reports, I've studied economics, I know how these things pan out, you see it in the news every day. When you pass regulations on a corporation, especially a corporation, but in general, anything that limits profits, people don't like to give up their money. So big corporations aren't going to just come into a shareholder meeting and empty their pockets and say, well, too bad, we can't do anything. What's going to happen is they're going to raise the prices of the game or do something else to generate revenue, which will cost you money, and pass along this increased cost to them onto you as a tax to the consumer. As long as the consumers are paying the tax, then the corporate ROI is intact and returns are minimally impacted. Of course they're impacted, but it's the best effect that they can get out of it. So essentially prices will just go up in a different way. Probably a base price raise, if I had to bet. Games might jump to $90 or $100. Or there could be a lot of games that just go full-on subscription service, and that's all they are, is just subscription service games, and you pay like your $15 a month Apex subscription, and that's it. Despite the fact that I realize that this would most likely increase the cost of games, I still think that it's a good idea, because the loot box wars have gotten ridiculous. Well, they've been ridiculous for a long time. Let's be real. Loot boxes have been crazy for years now. They're a plague on gaming. They're not good for anybody. It's really punishing to children that don't understand, or even adults really, that don't understand probability. And I think that we need some sanity back in our product choices so that I don't have to read a 3-page Excel file or a 40-page PowerPoint of math to understand exactly what it is that I'm buying when I'm purchasing, either just generally purchasing a game because there's so much stuff after, or the loot boxes in the game. It's too complex for the average person to handle, and it needs to be simplified because otherwise they're just going to keep getting ripped off and keep losing money. Finally, if you recognized Raftalia here, then you too have fine taste in anime. Guys, that's all for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.